Imagine a quiet, lonely house in the middle of nowhere, and suddenly something as ordinary as a sheet of paper starts moving on its own. It folds, cuts, and multiplies, turning into tiny, creepy little people with a mind of their own. That's exactly the nightmare Courage the Cowardly Dog faces in one of the most chilling episodes ever aired on Cartoon Network. Paper that comes to life sounds harmless, right? But in Nowhere, it becomes a terrifying threat, and Courage must do everything he can to protect Muriel and Eustace from these strange, spooky visitors. The episode opens with a calm, peaceful day. In Nowhere, the usual quiet that blankets Courage's little house. Everything seems normal at first. Muriel is going about her chores. Eustace is grumbling as usual, and Courage is nervously keeping an eye on the outside world. But this peace doesn't last long. The calm is broken when a strange package arrives, filled with sheets of blank paper. At first, it seems harmless, even silly, but soon the paper begins to move on its own. Little figures emerge, folding themselves into shapes that are both fascinating and terrifying. These are the paper people, and their appearance instantly sets a tone of suspense and dread. The animation here is particularly clever. The paper folds and twists in ways that feel alive, almost as if the walls themselves are conspiring with the strange visitors. The episode immediately captures the viewer's attention with this simple, yet unnerving idea, something ordinary becoming terrifying. Courage's instincts kick in quickly. He senses danger before anyone else does. As the paper people multiply, their movements become more unpredictable and eerie, and it's up to Courage to figure out their intentions while keeping his beloved family safe. The episode also does something brilliant. It blends humor with horror. While Courage is terrified and running around, the paper people themselves act in ways that are both funny and spooky, like mischievous children who can't be reasoned. With Muriel, on the other hand, sees the paper as harmless at first, which adds to the tension. The contrast between her calm innocence and Courage's frantic fear heightens the suspense. By the end of this first section of the episode, viewers are already on edge, captivated by the idea that something as simple as paper could become a dangerous, living force. This sets the stage for the rest of the story, where Courage must face not just the paper people, but the fear of the unknown itself. The introduction perfectly blends the signature elements of the show: eerie music, exaggerated facial expressions, and subtle hints that danger is never far away in Nowhere. The audience feels the tension building, knowing that what starts small, some harmless paper can quickly turn into a full-blown nightmare. The opening moments also do an excellent job of establishing the episode's central theme. Even the most ordinary things can become frightening when they start to act with a mind of their own. Courage's role is clear from the start. He is the protector, the brave heart in a house full of oblivious humans, facing threats that no one else can see or understand. By carefully combining humor, suspense, and clever animation, the first section of this episode grabs the audience immediately, making it impossible to look away. As the paper people start to take shape and their intentions become less predictable, the stage is set for the next wave of challenges that Courage must overcome. The hook is not just the moving paper, it's the uncertainty, the unexpected, and the feeling that anything could happen in this creepy little house in the middle of nowhere. This introduction is essential because it frames the rest of the story, ensuring that every viewer is invested in seeing how Courage will face this unusual and spooky threat. The tension, the clever use of animation, and the contrast between Courage's fear and Muriel's innocence all work together to make the opening unforgettable. As the story unfolds, the paper people start to reveal just how unpredictable and eerie they truly are. What seemed at first like harmless, moving sheets of paper quickly escalates into something far more unsettling. Courage watches in horror as the paper people begin to move around the house, creating shapes and forms that are completely unnatural. They fold themselves into little humanoid figures, some with twisted expressions and sharp edges, while others mimic objects around the house, almost as if they are learning how to blend in before striking. The animation amplifies the creepiness. Every fold and cut is exaggerated, giving the paper people a strange sense of life that is both mesmerizing and frightening. Courage, ever the vigilant protector, tries everything to stop them. He barks, jumps, and sets traps, but the paper people seem to anticipate his every move. Their numbers grow rapidly, multiplying across walls, floors, and ceilings, creating a surreal environment where nothing is safe or still. Muriel, ever kind and trusting, still believes the paper people are harmless, and this creates a tension that's almost unbearable. Courage's frantic attempts to explain the danger often end in comedic failure, which only heightens the suspense for the audience. The middle portion of the episode is filled with a series of suspenseful sequences, each more unnerving than the last. The paper people begin to target Eustace in their own mischievous way, wrapping him in paper or pushing him into bizarre scenarios. Every attempt Courage makes to intervene is met with increasing chaos. The soundtrack, a mix of eerie music and sudden, jarring sounds, amplifies the feeling of dread. One of the most memorable scenes is when the paper people use their paper forms to create traps and obstacles around the house. Courage must navigate a maze of moving sheets and dangerous folds, and the tension is almost tangible. The audience feels the same mix of fear and anticipation that Courage does, making the viewing experience immersive and intense. Humor is woven in subtly through Courage's exaggerated expressions and the paper people's awkward yet threatening movements. The episode strikes a delicate balance between spooky horror and dark comedy, keeping viewers on edge while also allowing them to laugh at the absurdity of the situation. As the paper people continue to spread and wreak havoc, Courage discovers that their power comes from a single source, a larger, more menacing paper person who seems to be directing the others. This revelation shifts the story from simple chaos to a battle of wits and courage. Courage's intelligence and bravery are put to the test as he tries to figure out how to stop them. The episode cleverly uses perspective and scale to make the paper people feel both overwhelming and sinister. Even small gestures, like a fold in the wrong place or a paper hand reaching out, are used to create tension. The climax of this section shows Courage making daring attempts to confront the leader of the paper people. His strategy involves a mix of clever thinking and pure luck, highlighting his character as both a coward and a hero. The audience is kept guessing whether he will succeed, and every twist is timed to maximize suspense. Throughout this plot breakdown, the episode emphasizes the theme of fear of the unknown. Ordinary things like paper are turned into instruments of terror, showing that danger can lurk in the most unexpected forms. Courage's determination, his small but heroic actions, and his ability to adapt to bizarre situations make him an endearing and relatable character. By the end of this section, viewers are fully invested in the story, wondering how the tiny house in nowhere will survive the onslaught of these seemingly harmless yet terrifying paper people. The tension, creative animation, and perfect mix of horror and humor all contribute to making this episode one of the most memorable in Courage, the Cowardly Dog's history. This episode of Courage, the Cowardly Dog stands out not just for its creepy visuals, but for the way it explores fear, imagination, and courage in a world that constantly feels unpredictable. The paper people are more than just animated antagonists. They represent the unknown, the kind of fear that emerges from ordinary objects when the rules of reality start bending. For viewers, especially those watching in the dim glow of a late-night screen, there's a creeping sense that something harmless could suddenly become a threat, and that tension is what makes this episode so memorable. Courage's role as the protector becomes even more compelling under this lens. While Muriel continues to see the paper people as innocent, and Eustace reacts with typical grumbling indifference, Courage must face his own fear head-on. He's small, often overwhelmed, and clearly terrified, yet he never gives up. This duality, Courage in the face of fear, is at the heart of why fans connect so deeply with the show. The animation techniques in this episode deserve special attention. Unlike standard episodes where movement is predictable, the paper people fold, twist, and multiply in ways that defy logic. Every frame is carefully designed to create tension, using exaggerated shadows, sharp angles, and unexpected movements to make the audience feel unsettled. Even the soundtrack plays a crucial role. Sudden bursts of high-pitched notes and eerie silence at key moments mimic the experience of being startled, making viewers feel as though they are right there in the house with courage. Beyond the technical brilliance, this episode sparks fan curiosity and theories. Some viewers suggest the paper people symbolize the fragility of everyday life, showing how easily chaos can erupt from mundane things. Others believe the episode is a reflection on Courage's own imagination. After all, he's a dog constantly hyper-aware of danger. So perhaps the paper people are manifestations of his anxieties brought to life. These fan interpretations add layers of depth that make the episode worth revisiting multiple times. Another interesting insight is how this episode blends horror and comedy. The paper people's movements are uncanny and unsettling, yet moments of slapstick humor punctuate the tension. Courage slipping on a sheet of paper, or the paper people's awkward attempts to mimic humans, creates a balance that keeps the audience engaged without overwhelming them with fear. This balance is part of what makes Courage the Cowardly Dog a classic. It's scary, but never entirely dark, allowing humor to provide relief while maintaining suspense. For longtime fans, this episode also stands out for its originality. Unlike typical villains, the paper people are faceless, emotionless, and alien in a way that feels fresh. They're not evil for the sake of evil, they simply act according to their nature, which makes their unpredictability all the more frightening. It's a reminder that sometimes fear doesn't need a motive. It only needs a presence. Finally, the episode leaves a lasting impression because it celebrates Courage's resourcefulness. Even when he's outnumbered and overwhelmed, he finds clever ways to manipulate the paper people, turning their own characteristics against them. Viewers notice how every action, every clever trick is rooted in his quick thinking rather than brute strength. This reinforces the idea that bravery isn't about fearlessness, it's about acting despite fear. Fan discussions often highlight these moments, praising the episode for its storytelling and thematic depth. By the end of the analysis, it's clear that Courage vs. Paper People is more than just a spooky cartoon. It's a masterclass in suspense, humor, and character development. It's a testament to the show's ability to make the ordinary terrifying, the small heroic, and the absurd utterly captivating. Every detail, from the eerie folds of the paper people to Courage's frantic heroics, contributes to an episode that remains unforgettable years after its original airing. Asterisk as the episode reaches its climax, Courage faces the final challenge of confronting the leader of the paper people, the one driving the chaos throughout the house. This moment is not just about action or suspense, it's a culmination of the themes that have been building throughout the story. Courage, a dog known for being scared of nearly everything, must summon every ounce of bravery, cleverness, and intuition to save Muriel and Eustace from a threat that seems unstoppable. It's a perfect illustration of the show's central message. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. What makes this episode particularly memorable is how it wraps up the story while leaving a lasting impression on the audience. The paper people are ultimately defeated, but not through sheer force. They are outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and shown to be limited by their own characteristics. This clever resolution reinforces the idea that intelligence and resourcefulness can overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. The episode doesn't just give viewers a simple, problem-solved ending. It leaves subtle hints about the unpredictability of life in nowhere, keeping the world open-ended and mysterious. Fans often revisit this episode not only for its spooky moments, but for its attention to detail in storytelling and character development. Every fold of the paper people, every frantic action by Courage, and every calm reassurance from Muriel serves a purpose, building a layered narrative that works on multiple levels. On one hand, it's a creepy, thrilling adventure that keeps viewers on the edge of their seats. On the other, it's a story about family, loyalty, and the importance of facing fears head-on. The episode also showcases the brilliance of the show's creators in blending horror with humor. While the paper people are undeniably eerie, their Strange and awkward movements, combined with Courage's exaggerated reactions, add comedic relief that prevents the tension from becoming overwhelming. This balance allows the episode to appeal to a wide audience: children, teens, and adults who appreciate clever, multi-layered storytelling. Another significant takeaway from this episode is the way it highlights Courage's growth as a character. Throughout the chaos, he learns to adapt, anticipate threats, and think creatively under pressure. Even though he is small, timid, and often frightened, his actions demonstrate that bravery comes in many forms. This theme resonates with viewers of all ages, offering a subtle lesson about resilience and problem-solving. Fans often discuss how this episode stands out because it takes something as ordinary as paper and transforms it into a source of suspense and fear. It's a reminder that in the world of Courage the Cowardly Dog, even the most mundane objects can become extraordinary and terrifying depending on the circumstances. The episode also leaves room for imagination. By not fully explaining the origin of the paper people or their purpose, the creators encourage viewers to think, theorize, and revisit the episode to uncover hidden details. This level of engagement is part of why the show has remained popular for decades. In conclusion, Courage vs. Paper People is much more than a spooky cartoon episode. It's a masterclass in storytelling, combining suspense, humor, and clever character development. Courage's heroism, the unpredictability of the paper people, and the tension-filled animation create an experience that is both thrilling and memorable. The episode teaches viewers that courage can be found in the smallest of heroes, that fear can be faced with creativity, and that even the simplest things in life may hold hidden challenges. For fans of Courage the Cowardly Dog, this episode remains a standout, a perfect example of how the series blends dark comedy with suspenseful storytelling. As the screen fades to black and the paper people are defeated, viewers are left with that lingering sense of awe and unease, the feeling that in nowhere, anything can happen, and that even the most ordinary object may hide extraordinary surprises. It's an episode that reminds us why Courage's adventures are so timeless, because bravery, imagination, and humor always find a way to shine, even in the darkest, spookiest moments.